All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry about the late start. We're not used to streaming on Thursday, so we have one member who's going to be here in a little bit, and we are here now. So we're gonna switch things up a little bit. We're probably gonna talk healthcare first, and then we'll roll into the normal segment. Chris, your screen is flashing in and out there.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with that. That shouldn't be. There we go. All right. I don't know why I did that. It shouldn't be, but here I am.
That's funny. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. This is kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Yeah. Thanks. Seriously, you in the audience. I love you guys. Thank you for hanging out. If you are actually there, if that even is your real name, audience.
Audience. Well, I mean, let's dive into it. Some healthcare then. So
yeah, you want to start off at like a high level and kind of like, because there's like so many different ways that we can do this, right? And I think we have a problem where like people like you and I, we've had these debates before. We'll start at some like super low level, like little microcosm in the healthcare field that we both know and understand, and we kind of know that we disagree over it, so we start working at that level. But I mean, I think a lot of times, we forget to start high level, let people know like, okay, healthcare. Here's kind of what I believe about it. Here's what the left kind of believes about it. Here's what I believe about it. Here's what the right believes about it, and then maybe work our way down on something we contend from the top. What do you think?
Totally. So, I mean, I'm happy to talk some macro level stuff and ideological. I'm also happy to share kind of where I think, and then if you want to go from there, you can tear apart what I say. You can make it your own, like whatever makes the most sense for you. I think the easiest way to start. I mean, how about you could just start with what would your ideal system look like? Totally. So my ideal system would be universal healthcare that is government sponsored, or a very credible public option that individuals could opt into if they wanted to choose to take like a government option. So basically an alternative to the private health insurance, because when we look at it currently, the per capita expenditures in the United States is on average, the average person spends about $10,000. This is off of Forbes, about $10,000 a year on healthcare. And that's not including, when we really think about it, severe expenses. This is just the average, the median. And that sounds about right to me. I mean, the average person is spending about that much on healthcare.
Is that the median or the mean?
That's the median. That's the median. So when we look at this, I mean, that's concerning to me. So a huge cost burden is put on every individual to be able to maintain healthcare when quite honestly, the rest of the world does not have that same problem. We do have a higher cost expenditure on healthcare than the rest of the other developed nations in the world. So I look at it and I say it makes perfect sense to me to have government-sponsored healthcare, have it come from our taxes, and have a universal way to be able to lower the price on our expense. So obviously, taxes would go up, but because you would not have to pay for healthcare through your employer on your own, if you're a contractor or some other unique job, it would ultimately at the year end expenditure, you would have paid less money. And so that's where I look at it. And also, cost aside, because I realize some people won't care about dollars and numbers. Some people care about, we should do this because it's right. In the policy world, we typically don't say we should do this just because it's right. That's not a feasible argument in most places. However, I do believe that there's a humanitarian component to this, that we should not be to a reasonable extent, and that's obviously the big asterisk of definition, but to a reasonable extent, asterisk of interpretation, I mean, reasonable extent, we should not allow people to go without healthcare. If somebody has a problem, if somebody is struggling with their health, they should not be turned down the right to coverage. So I do believe there is a right to coverage. And I know you will disagree on that, right? But I do believe in that, and I know the left believes in that.
Yeah. So, sorry, it's a fly.
Mike Pence over here.
I know, right? Yeah. For all you know, there's a 1,000 of them because my hair's so dark. Maybe in 15 years, you guys will be able to. Maybe 5 more years at my job, you'll be able to tell if there's a fly in my head because I'm gonna have all white hair.
But you know what? You'll have so much gel in it, man, that you won't even be able to feel them. They'll just kind of like crawl around.
True. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Everybody's like, wouldn't you notice a fly in your head? It's like, no. I mean, like, it's pretty solid up there right now. I'm trying to train my hair. It looks bad tonight because I use my fingers. I usually use like a brush, but anyways. Okay, so we actually do agree on we want help. We want to help people, right? And generally, it's the people at the bottom end of the spectrum who aren't going to have the coverage. Everybody else can generally afford the coverage they have. Maybe barring cancer or like super high, super expensive treatments. So like we obviously agree right there. That's one of the big problems is, a lot of people assume that because the right doesn't grant healthcare as a right, we don't care about, poor people, or we just want them to go out in the streets and just die in a ditch. But it's not the case, generally speaking. So how to put this? So on the right, we believe that systems of how to put this. So healthcare is not a thing. Geez, I'm doing so bad with this. Healthcare is not like water or air, right? So the problem with saying that healthcare is a right is that you have to the government then is responsible for supplying that to people. And if there's not enough, the government has to create more. But the problem with that is that you can't create more doctors, right? Unless you just have larger families and then, play roulette and one of them might be a doctor. So there's a massive problem with saying something is a right, but you don't actually have a way to guarantee that to people. Like, for example, in South Africa, it says it right in their constitution that they have a right to healthcare and a right to housing, and the housing's crappy and their healthcare's crappy, right? So it's like,
well, let's be fair though. South Africa is currently a post-conflict society, technically still. So we're looking at a little bit
we're
more.
a pre-conflict society. We're headed towards it.
Yeah, we are a pre-conflict society, but in terms of semantics, South Africa is very much as wealthy as some individuals are as an aggregate. It's a developing country,
right? So, okay. So the best way to think about this on the right is that there's a whole bunch of different frameworks through which to look at this, and that is that you can make this assertion right here. There's three things that you can get out of healthcare. You can get availability, widespread availability. You can get cheapness, or you can get quality, right? So quality, availability, and price, essentially. But you can only have, man, I'm messing all of this up. You can only have two of those things, but you can't have three, right? Generally speaking. So if you try to raise the quality and raise the availability, the cost is going to go way up, right? And so, or vice versa, right? If you try to, lower the cost, you're going to come up on, or you're going to come down on availability, and maybe, so like you can only get so much out of it, right? And so a lot of times the conversations that we have around healthcare are you're looking at it as, well, we just need to guarantee this and then pay for it. But the problem is that we're not incentivizing more of it. So it's like, how do we make more doctors? How do we make better healthcare? How do we make more innovations that are going to make healthcare better in the future? And generally speaking, the conservatives say it's like you can hobble the healthcare market now, but that's going to cost us innovations in the future, right? So, if that made any sense, man, I'm just not on it tonight.
You're fine. You're fine. I am going to probably tear apart some of the arguments you just put together.
Go for it, please.
So one of them is that I believe, one of the big arguments that you guys have is supply and demand, right? Is like, well, yes, how are we going to ensure there's going to be enough doctors? The other one that is the big is quality of care.
Yep.
Let's look at Canada that has basically a universal healthcare system. The average salary in the United States of a doctor is $313,000 a year. The average salary of a doctor in Canada is $281,000 a year. So it's like a $30,000, $40,000 difference. Mm-hmm. However, when you actually look at it, when you look at medical school enrollment in Canada and medical school enrollment in the United States, they've both been consistent throughout the past 20, 30 years. There is actually more of an issue that there's too many medical students and not enough residencies to occur. Because the supply is that you need to be able to make sure that medical graduates are able to hold a residency in a place that they would like. And currently, as medical students have been graduating, there is a strong concern that there's actually not enough places because there's so many students to ensure the proper training. We can argue that maybe we can add more caseloads, maybe we can have multiple residencies in places. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not about to argue on like what is the most credible way of creating residency, but there is not a doctor shortage in the countries that there are universal healthcare. And quite honestly, I imagine that a doctor is not too upset that they could have made $30,000 more a year in the United States when they're making $281,000 in Canada. I might be wrong.
That could be. Hold on a second. All right, there we go. All right, we got Tim coming online. Let's keep going. So yep, keep going along. Yeah.
Finally,
hey.
when we talk about universal healthcare, I think Tim actually made a really good point last week. It's like, there are certain public options and public services that we rely on that, we do not explicitly pay for, that are as ready as, things such as water. Now, I'm sure you'll argue against this, that in certain rural areas, that's not the case. And we can argue the same thing in for-profit healthcare, and we can argue the same thing as universal healthcare in rural areas and low populated areas. There become shortages of everything. However, there's firefighters, there's police officers. These are public services. Why don't, can you imagine if you're having a home invasion, right? You can't control that. Someone's breaking into your house. You call the police and they give you like a $2,000 bill. It's like, right? But that's what happens in healthcare. You have a heart attack. Maybe you let's pretend this person's a healthy individual who couldn't have seen it coming, because we're gonna get to health in the future, because health in the country versus others is a genuine conversation we will probably agree on. Say healthy individual has a heart attack. Ambulance comes, saves them as they should. The dude gets crippled with a $2,000-$3,000 hospital bill. Why? Like it's more cost effective to have home invasions in this country than it is to have a heart attack.
Right, but okay, so the issue is that's apples to oranges, right? And it's apples to oranges because you have to talk about what the function of government is, right? And this is actually another major scruple that conservatives have with the issue is that it's not, especially the federal government, it is not the government's job to provide this to you, right? It's not in our Constitution. It's not in our political philosophy, essentially. Now, I mean, we can change that, but I don't think, unless we do a constitutional ratification where we put another amendment in, I mean, the federal government's job is never going to be healthcare.
Is it in the Constitution that we have fire department that's government controlled?
No, but that's done by state and local municipalities.
Okay, so we can do that by state and local municipalities for healthcare.
Which they do, and I have much less of an issue with. I have an efficacy argument against that, right? So, for example, Massachusetts does that. And I can generally choose to leave Massachusetts, within reason.
Connecticut
is the FBI's power in the Constitution? What about the marshals?
Yeah, under that would be executive
marshals are
branch,
state, right?
U.S. I think they're U.S. Marshals.
U.S. Marshals, no, those are federal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So all of that is just something that Congress has delegated to the executive branch. It's the executive branch's duty to carry out what the legislative branch passes over to it. So somewhere down the line, the legislative branch said, "Hey, we need you to have an organization that can investigate, countrywide crimes or whatever it is," and then you create.
It's just as possible that the legislative branch would come around and say, "Hey, you know what? We need to set up a department that can help manage healthcare."
Yeah, true, but it's still like it's sort of at odds with our founding philosophy, right? Which is this is what the federal government is for. This is what they should do, right? And then there's the concept of positive and negative rights, right? So this is a real big one with conservatives. So there's positives and negative rights. So a positive right is something that you have a right to, as in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A negative right, oh no, wait, hold on. I think I'm getting this. I always get this backwards. It's a negative right. A negative right is something that cannot be infringed upon, right? So for example, the Second Amendment, you don't have a right to a gun, as in the government can't give you a gun. You have a right that the government not infringe on your right to own a gun, right? So that's a negative right. Now, the positive right, meaning that I have a right to something, that is something that conservatives kind of generally push back against, right?
Well, can we argue?
So, but there's plenty of. Sorry, go ahead, Chris. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, couldn't you not, if we want to take a constitutional argument, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, could we not say that having a reasonable standard of healthcare to ensure that people have the ability to live fruitful, productive lives, wouldn't that not be enumerated in the Constitution?
Right, but that's also that's a negative right. Man, every time I talk, it cuts you out. That sucks. So those are, I know, it's like I got my
prioritizing.
Yeah. So those are negative rights, like I just said, and I could be messing this whole thing up, man. Jeez.
No, I don't know if you're using the right term, positive or negative, on the right ones, but yeah, you're 100% right.
Right. Yes.
There's two types, and it's, can you take it away, or is it something you're owed?
Right, and all of those that I mentioned are take it away. So the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, your right is not to have those things that the government guarantees them to you. It's that the government cannot infringe on them, or the government, I suppose, protects them for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we have in place right now, though, that is not in the Constitution, that we've passed legislation for, that helps along those lines. I mean, the Food and Drug Administration is a good example. There's no...
Yeah, we don't need it.
There's nothing in the Constitution.
We've talked about this.
We have, yeah.
You don't think we need the FDA?
Hell no, man. We don't need it. Hey, you going to buy spoiled milk, Chris? Are you going to buy it?
Well, it's not even that. It's like passing drugs. If you take that away, you go back to the snake oil salesman. You don't actually have to prove that your drug is effective. You just have to convince someone and sell it to them. And I know we've had this talk before. In your opinion,
we're probably not going to agree.
Yeah, your opinion is free market. Let people buy it. They'll realize it doesn't work or kills them, and they'll stop buying it. And the guy goes out of business. But the problem is, there's now a dozen dead people before that happens.
Right, and that person goes to jail.
Right. So it's. I mean, to me,
so don't
it's
sell
worth
snake
having
oil
that
or you're going to jail.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, that
people get away with it.
So, but the thing is that the FDA isn't free, and it hampers it hampers the free market. Like it puts a massive damper on drugs coming to market.
So I'd like to share all this with you guys. So this is some vitamin B12, and it's a non-GMO vitamin B12, and I'm actually kind of scared to take it because in your utopian world, I'm not going to walk in the ShopRite and buy some like ratchet milk,
right?
Thing. Right? Yeah. Like, obviously, I don't even drink milk. I'm like, right? So, obviously, we're going to be doing those things. The market regulates that. But what about those things that are more nebulous or nefarious to consumers? So, myself being the paranoid consumer that I am, I bought this vitamin B12 supplement because I care about my immune system. I don't eat meat. I know I need more vitamin Bs. And I was looking on the back, and at the very, very tiny thin line is these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration.
Yeah, be brave, man. You'll be okay. You'll be okay.
I just bought some random pills.
Look how official that bottle looks, though. There's no way that could be bad.
Probably a whole bottle of placebos, man. You're fine.
Yeah, baby.
It's just a bunch of placebos.
Right? It looks so safe, man. It looks so safe. I bet most people don't ever read that back corner. And it's like, all right, this nice sunny ass looking bottle, but it's never been gone through trials. No one's verified that this is a safe vitamin B12 substance that I can be taking.
There's got to be something with that.
It's a very on point topic right now too. I mean, we're talking about these vaccines that are being investigated and going through the process that needs to be done to ensure that they're safe for public consumption. And 50% of the population said if a vaccine came out right now, they wouldn't take it. And not because they're afraid of taking vaccines. And I know there's a subset of the population that are anti-vaccine, but that's not 50%. Right? Yeah.
How many people do we think that is?
The number's dwindling every year.
Hey, we'll be gone in a generation.
No, but if the Russian vaccine was here, would you take it right now? Oh,
geez, yeah, no.
The point is, we trust the FDA, we trust our processes to go through and evaluate these, and these are services that we've decided as a community and as a society that we need and that are valuable and are worth paying for. And I don't think having healthcare controlled by the government is much different. It's just new, but it's not a new precedent to have a service like this that that is government controlled. So I think it's worth talking about it and being open-minded to, and not just shutting down because it's not in the Constitution or not something we already do.
Well, it's just one of my many arguments. Go ahead.
You know, and here's the thing, right? If private health insurance was this wonderful, unmonopolized, uncorrupted entity that was not like price gouging people and taking advantage of despair, then sure, we wouldn't have this conversation at all. We're not having this conversation on Amazon.
That's the line, Chris.
Think about it.
Put that on a poster.
You know, we're not thinking about this on Amazon. Like, yeah, we're talking about like antitrust, but I buy Amazon every single day, right?
Oh,
like,
give me that Amazon healthcare, bro. Come on, I'm down for it.
But no, seriously, when we're talking about successful, well-operating, Amazon lost my package like 4 or 5 times this year. Every single time they either reimbursed me and took the hit, or like some other like, pro-consumer thing. And so it's like, yeah, Jeff Bezos is a mega billionaire for a reason. However, when we're looking at health insurance, that is not the same thing. The Martin Shkreli is like the perfect, and that's the fun pointed example, but it happens time and time again, right? Like, the reality is if your life depends on a medication and your insurance is covering it, so you're not paying it out of pocket, it's basically being subsidized by other people's insurances, then as a drug provider, you can just rack up the cost of your medicine. And they go, oh, the insurance will eat it, so the person's barely paying it. It's like, well, yeah, their insurance is going to eat it, but it's also going to eat several other people's as well. And that's what brings up everybody's cost of health insurance. It's like we have so much corruption.
So look, okay, so we can talk about that specific issue. So part of the problem there is that, and this is a very hard issue to fix. That's why it hasn't essentially been fixed yet. The problem there is that you need to let people be able to have patents, right? So you need to be able to guarantee for people who are making a drug, you have to guarantee that at least for a period of time, they're the ones who are going to benefit from it, right? Because they're putting all of the money in the R&D and taking all of the risk by investing in the new drug. So we have a patent system. And the thing is, and I'm not sure about how long this is. It might be like 5 or 10 years. Your patent will expire on the drug, and then you can have generic brands, right? And so before that time, you have a monopoly on your drug, right? So the problem
20 years.
Is it 20 years? Thank you, Tim. So during that time, you have a monopoly, and you can do all the Martin Shkreli stuff, which is horrible, right? It's disgusting, jacking up the prices of people's life-saving medication. And so it's hard to do something against that. We can make some laws, and, I'm sure Congress has looked at some of them and struck them down for various reasons.
The big thing too, just on the topic, to add extra context for our viewers, and this is pretty much unbiased information. It's not even so much that you have individual inventors like inventing, patenting these drugs. You have major pharmaceutical companies and major for-profit agencies that have a wealth of power to walk around these things. They'll patent components of the drug. They'll patent a certain ingredient in a drug, or they'll patent a certain process that makes this drug that basically keeps these patents locked in way longer than the initial 20-year period.
Yeah, they'll also they'll rejigger the drug. They'll change something up in it right before the patent expires, and then move forward with a new patent on the same drug essentially, but it's just an extended patent. So, there's a whole bunch of problems with that. But the problem is that if you don't have those patent laws, nobody's going to invest in drugs because they can't have a monopoly on it. Like, they can't benefit from their hard work, essentially, right? And I know we like to rag on mega corporations, but these are the guys making the drugs, the life-saving drugs. They are also the guys that are making the opioid epidemic a thing. So, So I take it for what it is. But they do make everything that you take was invented essentially. Well, almost everything that you take was invented by one of these, crony mega corporations who are just out there to make a buck. But they save people's lives every day by doing so. So,
there's nothing wrong with the company making money off of their product,
of course.
And high drug prices is only one smaller issue in the medical
correct
field when it comes to health insurance. We've like you've mentioned a few times, we've had this talk multiple times over late night drinks, and my biggest contention for why we do need some federal regulations in the healthcare system is because it's not a free market. A free market requires that, from my economic 101 classes, requires that your supply and demand curves react to each other, and in healthcare they do not. It doesn't matter.
Explain that.
Because it doesn't matter what you charge. If somebody needs the service, they're going to pay it, right? Like, let's say you have
a price.
Hold on. Let's say you're having a heart attack. Okay, you're having a heart attack, and you get in an ambulance, and you tell the ambulance, "Hey, take me to the nearest hospital." And you get to that hospital. Do you sit there and say, "Hey, how much do you charge to take care of this heart attack?" Hey, hold on, before I buy this service, let me call up the hospital that's five miles down the road and see how much they charge. Oh, wait, okay. Hey, ambulance driver, this guy charges like 20% less. Let me go. No, you fucking get your heart taken care of, and then you worry about the price. Right. And it doesn't matter what price they tell you. You're not going to be like, oh, you know what? That's too much. Just let me die of my heart attack.
So, but that's just emergencies.
But people do forego important, significant treatment. I mean, I know someone right now. I won't disclose their information, but they're a little bit older. They're a lot older. They literally have a broken hip, and they don't have health insurance because they're a contractor. And so for the past 6 years of their life, it has gotten worse and worse and worse. And I imagine in a couple of years, this person will no longer be able to walk anymore, and the quality of the rest of their life has greatly diminished. Are we to say that this person, because they spent their life building roofs instead of being Kim Kardashian, shouldn't be allowed to live out the rest of their years? Or should their life be diminished by 10 to 15 years because there's not healthcare? Because no doctor will treat it. Like, if the surgery, the procedure is too expensive.
Okay, so let me turn that question on you. What doctor are you going to force to fix him for free?
And I think you actually just blessed my argument a bit. You're not going to find a doctor to fix it for free. This is why it needs to be a universal healthcare system where the government can regulate and make sure that these treatments are paid for, compensated, even when there's not a profit margin to be had on it. And in this way, there is a profit margin because there is a payer. We look at Canada doctors. They make $280,000 a year. Our doctors make $300,000.
Right, and their quality of Okay, so then we go back to the trifecta of things. The problem with the countries with universal health care is that, generally speaking, the quality of care is much lower. It's usually rationed. It's usually, like in Canada, you have to wait 2 years to get a family doctor. 2 years from the time that you need a family doctor, you have to wait.
I think you need to double check. You need to double check that data. I've talked to multiple people about this that I'm friends with through games and other things, and none of them agree with any of the data and statistics that we often hear on our news about how long they have to wait for service or for care or for doctors or anything like that. Truth be told, for some things they do have to wait. But we have to wait here too. I've had a spinal fusion, and I had to wait 6 months to get in to see the doctor to be able to get on schedule for that.
Right.
So it's not like we're immediately getting in here and seeing the doctors that we need to for our care either.
Right, but specifically with Canada, for example, they come here for elective surgeries, or they come here for cancer treatment because our system is way better.
The wealthy individuals maybe, and that wouldn't change for the United States. The wealthy individuals would be able to pursue some version of a private option. But think about it this way, right? Like, I bet if you told this man I'm speaking about right now, hey, if you lived in Canada, you'd wait 2 years to get your hip replaced versus never being replaced. Wouldn't you take a 2-year wait, even if that is some inflated number? I'm trying to look it up right now, but I would much rather have it. And also, again, in the United States, I mean, I remember my wisdom teeth were impacted, severely impacted. And I was told I have to wait 2 months, to the point that I could not eat. Like, there was a month and a half of my life I just couldn't have eaten. Would I have experienced the same thing in Canada? Maybe not. Maybe it would have been considered more of a high tier emergency.
So there's this complicated. This topic is way complicated. Like, even the stuff that we're talking about, like all of these procedures that you're talking about, all of these complicated surgeries, these chemotherapies, like all of these methods to treat people, they were all designed in this system while it was the way it is, right? Almost exclusively. Like, the United States puts out like 80% of the world's medical patents. It's just disgusting how much innovation.
But why do we pay for all of that, and none of the rest of the world has to?
Yeah, well, look. So you're kind of right. Essentially, it's like, do we want to hobble this? So do we want to? And this is how. And I'm going to use the S word. I don't mean it quite as bad as it's going to sound.
Soliloquy?
Kind of with socialism.
Oh.
So this is how, when you socialize any system, it's kind of the same thing. So you can take this amazing system that we have right now, we can freeze it in place, and we can distribute its gains to everybody right now. But the problem is that history shows when you do that to any system, like for example, the oil in Venezuela, like whatever it is, like everything in the USSR, you don't actually grow anymore, right? You just take it where it is and you distribute it to people.
These are false comparisons, because what we're saying is that we also have one of the most healthy democracies in the world. We're saying that we're going to have our government institution oversee these in a deliberative body. What happened in Russia? Why am I forgetting? I literally know his name. It was in 1994 is when it happened. Is when you have the separation and disbursement of all the states, and basically they here you have one of the most impoverished countries in the world. And then everybody in the country gets a couple pieces of paper that says, hey, you now own 0.000% of oil. So basically these very, very wealthy people, first and foremost, they were already inside of the government. And so they were able to receive massive, massive portions of these industries. They were already existingly wealthy people who then went in and just bought up all these papers. And by the end of it, there was also the Bank for Loans program, because since they're
talking about oil in Russia?
This is Russia.
I was talking about oil in Venezuela.
Oh, this is the Russia oil crisis. This is how everything ended up in Russia. Venezuela is a similar thing. It was an unstable country. It was a developing nation that then tried to socialize, and it doesn't work. And we're not. And they also were doing.
It doesn't work because they took oil away from people who knew what they were doing, and they gave it to quote unquote people, which is just the boss's friends essentially.
But that's not what we're doing here. We're saying we're going to oversee a service by the government. We're not giving it to the people. We're overseeing the services and then providing that as a regulator.
So how? Okay, so all right. So I mean, this topic gets so broad and complex. You almost have to start taking some things on faith. And one of the things that I've seen demonstrated time and time again is that when you put the government in charge of something, unless it specifically needs to advance, like the military, it will not advance, right? And even all those advancements in the military, those come from private investments, right? So the government says, Lockheed Martin, make me a missile that can do this.
You don't think healthcare is something that needs to advance continuously?
That's what I'm saying. It needs to advance continuously. And usually when the government takes full control of something, like just look at the USPS. They have had the same mail trucks since what, 1970? Right? Because
you keep saying that, but dude, they drive vans around my house.
Oh, yeah. Well, you keep saying that, but they drive the old ones.
Do we need to reform mail trucks, though? Mail trucks don't seem that bad. They do the job.
Right. Yeah. Chemotherapy doesn't seem that bad. I'm sure we don't need something new. Chemo works. And we don't have the money for R&D.
No, well, the point I was going to make, though, was healthcare would be more similar to the military than it would be to the USPS. You have to continue to drive advancements, and those advancements wouldn't come from the government agencies. They'd come from the private companies, similar to the military private companies that advance our technology there. And I don't know what Chris was proposing for healthcare prior to me joining.
Universal, I think.
I personally don't want the government to run all of the healthcare. I just want it to regulate healthcare.
It already regulates healthcare
to the point, not to the point that it needs to, in my opinion. So one of the things that I think was important with Obamacare and why it was able to overcome the pre-existing condition stipulation is because it requires everybody to have healthcare. The problem with forcing the companies to offer care at the same price for somebody that has a pre-existing condition is that person now doesn't have to carry health insurance until they need it, right? So they don't have health insurance, they fall and break a leg, they discover they have a heart problem, whatever it is, they run out and buy health insurance real quick, they rack up a huge bill, and then they can cancel it. That's why Obamacare had to put in the stipulation of saying you have to have healthcare. You either have it through your work, or you have it through the public, the public option, or you pay a penalty. Right. That's why that was put in place.
That's incredibly not the purpose of the government. Right. That actually hit me. Right. So while I was a college student and I didn't have money to get my own private insurance, I was getting dinged by Obama, even though I was extremely healthy and I had no money to get that stuff in the first place.
I do agree. I think the fee on Obamacare was problematic. I think that was
right. But Chris, so they needed that because they don't have money to pay for any of this stuff. Right. And so that's kind of where I go to with this is like, so for you, I mean, the universal health care
because it was half-assed done. It was a first step.
Yeah.
That's why it was so expensive.
It was so the way my side would say it was designed to fail so that they could push for something further. Right.
No,
because
it was designed to be a stopgap.
Okay.
It was the first step.
That's an interesting point. I would say this is that I think the Affordable Care Act was a step in the right direction. I think that the pragmatist in me realized that universal healthcare is not going to happen in the next 4, 10, 15 years. What I do see happening is kind of what Tim said.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I am. I'm pretty positive.
You guys might do a blue wave here. We don't know. We might lose the Senate, and you might get the presidency.
But keep in mind, Democrats aren't like you guys. We split. We split inside. Like you will see.
Yeah, but you have the two factions are Democrat, which is fairly socialized medicine, and far left, which is universal health care. So I mean, if you land somewhere in the middle, you're gonna get kind of what you want.
No, that's not true. You don't see that from the moderate Democrats. The Amy Klobuchar.
The Democrats are also going to have pushback from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, the Amy Klobuchar Democrats are not here to put in universal health care. What we can see, again, going back to what Biden said on the debate when he was a Democrat candidate, I actually think was a really strong proposal where it's like, let's have the government step in if healthcare expenditures cap a certain percentage of your income. So let's say if over 10% of your income, or let's say even higher or lower, right? If more than 15% of your income, I mean that's more of a realistic middle ground, is going towards healthcare, then maybe we should cap it at that. It's like, all right, if you're making $50,000 a year and you're spending $18,000, $19,000 on healthcare, maybe the government can pick up the next couple thousand after that.
So that's the thing too, is where is that money coming from? We are already in a $2 trillion deficit. Where does the money come from? Like we need to find $2 trillion somewhere that we already don't have. Sure. And you're talking about something else that we need to add on top.
Let's talk about that right after Trump just gave a massive
I agree.
tax cut and raised the national debt by over $1 trillion when we didn't need to.
Well, hold on. So two different things. So the tax cuts, it's the jury's out on whether they paid for themselves with increased revenue. I mean, the pandemic really kind of threw a wrench in looking at those analytics. But he also, so to your point, he increased spending. So regardless of how you look at it, that is essentially raising taxes. It's just people in the future are going to have to pay for it.
The jury's not out on historical data as far as tax cuts and trickle-down economics. The data is in from many different U.S. and other countries doing it. It doesn't work.
I will say this.
The jury's not out on it.
The jury's in on that. It does work.
It does not work.
I'm a big fan of Biden's proposal and what most moderate Democrats would allow to get through. Because Biden's a moderate. Let's be real here. He's a moderate. He's not a leftist. You are having a moderate in the White House. People just like to call him a socialist because it makes moderate voters afraid of him.
Kind of.
But when we look at his proposals, it's like, all right, if someone's making more than $400,000 a year, which less than 1% of the country does, we can tax them a bit higher. There's ways to close capital gains loopholes. So it's not raising taxes, but if we just actually close the loopholes that exist, then sure, we probably would be able to bring in a bit more revenue to cover these things. So it does pay for itself if you create the taxing that should be implemented. And I'm sorry, but if you're making $400,000 a year, like there's no problem at all paying a little bit more than your fair share, because it also comes down to
but that's just not how America works, man. I just
like problematic.
That's not that's not your money. It's not the poor people's money. They made that money. Why are you taking more?
So I'm okay being taxed if I know my income is going towards a productive means.
That's
okay
because you're a charitable person, and you genuinely are. And it's people like you that conservatives rely on. As a matter of fact, conservatives give at a ratio of 2 to 1 over Democrats to charity, right? Because conservatives believe
take away religious charities. And what's that number?
No, they do give a ton. They give a ton. I mean, it's the reality. Like, you know, Christian conservatives especially, they give a ton to like local nonprofits, businesses.
Right, because they think that it's their job to help people. They think that it's not the government's job. And right, there's like no, like I'm not, you know, no flame, but that's just the difference between left and right. Like the conservatives genuinely believe in community first. Community, take care of the person that you know. Right, if you know that this person deserves a hip replacement, get together, start a GoFundMe. It's like the weirdest thing. Like people are like, do you really want to live in a country where people have to use a GoFundMe? Well, first of all, most people do have insurance, most people. But the fact that GoFundMe exists, it's like, oh, you have to use GoFundMe. No, that's an amazing thing, right? If you can have a GoFundMe where people who care about you can help you out, that's a good thing, right? Instead of taking money from somebody who you don't know, a taxpayer over here who might need that money more than you do, right? You can rely on people.
I guess the argument comes into this too. Is, I mean, there's twofold, and I do want to get to one major healthcare point that I think is something we'll agree on. However, I'll preface it with my points right now. Is first and foremost, like let's use a super provocative example. Let's use Jeff Bezos. Let's use Jeff Bezos,
my boy,
richest dude in the world. Jeff Bezos has earned his money. He has built an empire. He has built. I'm sure he's done some pretty awful things in the background. I don't care. I don't know. He's built up.
I'm sure he's an angel.
He's built up
hardworking angel.
Oh God, he's built up a strong company. He relies on our roads, and now you'll say, okay, and that's why taxes pay for roads. He also relies on human capital. He has one of the biggest workforces in the whole world,
and he pays them.
He does. He also relies on people to be healthy, to be productive, to be educated, to be able to work a forklift, right? Mm-hmm. To be forklift certified. He relies on people to have that K-12 education. He relies on people to have healthy, productive lives, right? Like, so for instance, this is why we don't turn away infants. Like if an infant doesn't have healthcare, they automatically have healthcare. We're not letting a baby die because that baby is going to be a productive means of human capital. They're going to develop wealth in this world, either for them or for somebody else. And so that same thing, in my eyes, should apply to humans as at any age. It's like the reality is we rely on human capital. We rely on these individuals. We rely on the healthy ecosystem of our country. If people, when people live longer, the GDP increases. When people live longer,
yeah, but that's causation and correlation right there. It's got to be the other way around on that one. No, GDP being higher makes people live longer.
Sure, because like, you know, quality of living is moving up. One of the ways of quality of living is healthcare. Like we should have healthcare for people. This is important for our communities, and also it's just the right thing to do. And I know that's not a seasoned example. One last thing, I will say this. This is my one major given to this whole thing is when we talk about the United States and we talk about other countries on healthcare, I think a really important false comparison that we line, and I would say this is probably one of the only major false comparisons other than institutional problems of like you talk about patenting, is our country is really unhealthy. Like we have one of the unhealthiest countries in the world. Yeah. Our obesity rates are really through the roof. Our diabetes are through the roof. Yeah. We are one of the most inactive countries. We have the highest consumer rates of fast food. Yeah. And so
that's why COVID hit us harder than the rest of the world.
You know, there's a relative truth to that, right? But also we didn't implement. You know, I'm not going to go on that tangent.
Yeah, we can.
My side already is thinking exactly what I'm going to say out loud, so I'm not going to go there. But what I am saying is the cost of healthcare is significantly higher in our country because we also have more health problems in other countries as an aggregate. And so we need to have a serious culture shift to be able to say, you know what, maybe people should not be eating a ton of meat. Maybe we should like lower our meat consumption.
Carnivore diet. It's good.
Other countries do not have 70% of their dinner being meat. I know that sounds really harsh, but it's like that's the truth. We know the way
because they po and can't afford it.
But the way meat is produced in our country, like fast food meat, accessible meat, is really, really unhealthy. Now, if you're eating mostly meat and you're getting it straight off the farm down the street, that's different. But
if you're gonna eat meat, you got to chase it first. You got to burn those calories up.
I'm a cannibal, so how does that stack up?
That's pretty bad, dude. You're getting a ton of chemicals, man. You're eating some nasty stuff.
Yeah, but look at his skinny face.
Yeah, I know. He's looking at that. It's actually an optical illusion. My facial hair is dark, so it like curves off the.
Nate's probably consuming vegans. He's probably cannibalizing vegans.
Right. Yeah, I'm not getting any nutrients.
Yeah, you're not eating the Texans.
All right, Tim, you want to make another point? I kind of wanted to move on to the debate. I thought this was.
Yeah, I'll close out on my healthcare thing for now, I guess. But for me, healthcare, I don't want the government to run healthcare. I just want some better regulations. The industry I work in is extremely highly regulated. I work in a financial industry, and there's regulations on everything, because if I take advantage of a client, if I do something wrong, I take away their livelihood. I take away everything, right? And so it's extremely regulated. And I think the medical industry needs to be the same way. I know it is highly regulated, but I think from an expense standpoint, it also needs to be regulated. Having a hospital charging 20 times the going rate for staying in a hospital room overnight versus a hotel room should have to be justified. And maybe it is justifiable. I don't know, but
right.
I mentioned I had to get a spinal fusion. Prior to the spinal fusion, I had two different injections that I got. They were both steroid injections in between my vertebrae in one case, and then in my SI joint in the other case. The only difference between the two procedures was about 3 inches down my spine, a little bit lower, right? Other than that, it was the same steroid, the same X-ray machine thingamajigger they used to make sure they were putting the needle in the right place, and the same people, the same room, the same process, everything was the same. And one of them was like $4,000 more than the other one. And so I asked, so first off, it was a shot. I got there, maybe an hour later I left. I went into a room, laid on a table. They had a machine that took multiple x-rays over my back. They just put the needle in, injection, put the needle in, injection, did like 2 or 3 shots, and I was done, right? And that was like a $6,000, $7,000 procedure in one case, and a $3,000 or $4,000 procedure in the other case.
Injecting you with like molten
No, it's a steroid, and this is what I'm telling you, why we need to regulate expenses. Now, granted, they have to pay for the facility. They have to pay for the equipment. They have to pay for the medication, the expertise of the doctors. I'm not saying it should be cheap.
Maybe the liability of the doctors in that case?
Yeah.
Was there any chance they were going to nick your spine?
Probably some, but very low. But the actual cost of it, let's say it actually costs them $1,000 or $2,000, and they make $1,000 off of it. Like, okay, whatever, they have profit. But why the same procedure, literally a couple inches difference on my back was so much more? I questioned. So I went to the group and I asked them about it, and their response was, "This is what we're allowed to charge." And I said, "What do you mean this is what you're allowed to charge?" "This is what the insurance companies will allow us to charge. This is what they'll let us charge for this, so we charge it." It has nothing to do with cost.
Right.
It doesn't have to do with the doctor making his money or the company making what they need to make. It's not about a free and open and fair market, because they charge whatever they can for whatever procedures they can based on what health insurances will pay. Right. And so the system needs to be fixed. I don't want the government coming in and running it from top down. I want them coming in and saying, whatever the raw cost of something is, you can charge X amount on top of it for these procedures. I'm giving an example. I don't actually want it to be exactly that, but like something along those lines. Yeah. It doesn't have to cover all procedures. Like I got LASIK. If you want to get LASIK, that's on your own, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so that's
you could wear glasses instead of getting LASIK.
So that's kind of part of my. So I guess I could probably roll into my final point here. Is that it's funny you bring up LASIK, because LASIK is the most under-regulated underregulated procedure, one of the most underrated medical procedures that exists today. And that is that the price of LASIK has gone down dramatically, right? Because the free market, it's just there's just no regulation on it. So the innovation and like the different methods they have like 5 different ways of doing it. It's gotten cheaper since the 90s, cheaper. It's like 30% cheaper. Meanwhile, the rest of the medical industry is flagging.
You know why it's getting cheaper? Because insurance doesn't cover it. It doesn't matter what the insurance
right. So
allows.
it's outside.
It's not
of
about being regulated. It's about
massively
insurance not covering it.
No, it's about both of those things, right? So the insurance is like a massively convoluted system that is barely free market the way that they work in the back door. So my point among many of the points I have is that the free market is going to improve. It's going to improve the quality, and it's going to improve the techniques that are available. It's going to improve a whole bunch of different things about the system. I think there are things that can definitely be improved. Donald Trump actually talked about one of them in the debate. It was like the only poignant point that he had in the last debate was that what he wanted to do was put price transparency. So that you can actually get an itemized list of what you're getting charged for. And that, I think, that might on its own revolutionize the pricing of medicine. I'm not saying it would fix the problem, but I think it would be huge, like a massively underappreciated effect that would have. And I hope to God, if Joe Biden gets in, I hope he pushes forward with that, because that would be fantastic, because then we can know exactly what we're getting charged for, and hopefully there's a lot less backdoor hijinks with the insurance industry. So I guess with that,
I agree with Trump on something. All right, I gotta go. Can't talk anymore. Gonna throw up.
Yeah, right. You're done. That's it. we're gonna put you to death in the public square now. Okay, so we started off a little weird. We started with the topic first. You guys want to do news, or you want to roll right into?
Let's do debate.
Okay, so we want to talk about the debate. I just want to pop this up real quick. I just have this one thing, so I just wanted to let people know real quick. All right, if you're a Republican, don't sleep on this. Trump is not doing too well in the polls, right? So, and it's not just the silent majority is going to come in. Like, we have to be super careful here, because
kind of screwed.
Right. So let me show you what I'm looking at right here, just real quick. So this is September 29th right here. Oh, hold on. Sorry, mouse.
There you go.
Yeah, I had the mouse over the other thing.
If you remember me saying, October polls historically are pretty much accurate predictors of an election.
Right. So,
except last year.
No, they were actually very accurate.
But you're saying that, but nobody knew that Hillary was gonna.
Well, no one was paying attention. The polls said that Hillary was going to win the popular.
Right, but not.
But also, when you look at certain votes that calculate electoral college wins, those ones are basically giving it to Trump.
4 years ago, they were.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can share it with you. It's the craziest thing. I never knew it either, because the mainstream media never shared it.
It's funny because I was in a poli-sci class, and he was like, "Yeah, man, there's no way." Like, he was supposed to be, he's supposed to be the expert in the room, and he came in. He came in the next day, and his face was like, "So let's talk about what happened last night."
Well, we can criticize this all day, and I am gonna criticism. It's like we're talking about the same professors who can't use Zoom yet. These are tenured people. Tenure should not exist. We should get rid of tenure.
What? That is not a leftist thing to say.
It is not. I am so anti-tenure. I'm relatively anti-educational unions, but
man,
what do you feel about lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court?
Hey,
I lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court. It's tenure.
All right, hold on, guys. Let me finish my point up real quick here. So, all right, so everybody, left or right, so you can either cheer or you can cry, I guess. So you got to be careful about this. This right here, September 29th, was when the presidential debate was. And the change since then has been a slight decrease for Trump, and Biden has pumped way up there, right? He's gone up at least another 1.5.
You think that's why Trump is declining to do another one?
No, I don't think so. I think it's because he just hates being bossed around by people who he thinks are, cucks for COVID, I guess.
Gotcha.
He shouldn't be debating now. He is
Why?
very.
He's not going to be transmissible by the time the debate rolls.
If he coughs one time during the debate, dude, it's over.
Well, let's do a virtual, and he's like, "No, I can't do that."
Yeah, for the record, I think virtual is a really stupid idea. Anyways, I don't think it's not going to have the same.
It works for us.
Yeah, but see, we're not in charge of the United States of America.
Yeah, well,
not yet.
Probably be good if we were. We should elect all of us.
I know.
So to your point on that, though, also from a Democratic standpoint, or from the Democrat standpoint, they shouldn't sleep on it either. I feel like that's what happened with Trump. Also, is a lot of people were like, Hillary's got it in the bag. I don't feel like going out and voting today. Or for me personally, I didn't vote for Hillary. I voted for a third party because I didn't like Hillary, and I wanted to put my vote with somebody that I liked and supported. And had I thought that, I don't know, I wasn't really that anti-Trump back then. I was, I had high hopes for him if he did win. I felt like, he's putting out an image and a persona that just to get, the media attention, and, he's smarter than that, and he's not going to, and I was wrong. He's not smarter than that. And
you hoped he would,
I think,
like
what you're doing right now, I think is very similar to most other moderate voters. And to be honest, you and the moderate population decides these elections, because with very, very rare circumstances, Nate and I are not going to vote for the other party with rare circumstances.
Yeah, it's got to be super rare. Like Trump would have to shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, like very, very, very rare.
Yeah, you'd probably just say it was self-defense.
I bet it was. I bet it was, you son of a bitch.
But let's on to that point. I think you guys recall me sharing this before, but it's like, if it rains, voter turnout goes down. And it's not because it goes down because people are afraid to go out. It's that it goes down when they think their candidate is going to win. And now there's one more barrier to vote. And they're like, what? Hillary's going to win anyways. Why am I going to go out when I can be cooking dinner? I'm going to have to wipe off my car, or or just all these things. It's like, I don't want to drive at night. I
remember nothing but sunshine the day after the election. It was just...
Well,
that was Trump's hair.
Angels descending from heaven.
No, that was all I remember was just drinking.
All right.
I remember being at my friend's house. I was at my friend's house. We were playing board games during the election, and we were sitting there playing, and I just hear my friend's wife start crying, like,
oh my god,
massively. And I was like, "What the hell?"
I remember,
and it was when Trump won.
Dude, I feel like this is like I remember Trump's like the day after November 3rd, or the day after that Tuesday, Wednesday morning. I remember it like how I remember 9/11.
Right? Yeah, everybody remembers where they were after Trump got elected, and they remember where they were on 9/11.
I walked into student government office, and it was just silent. And that office was
oh my god, dude! We had a college Republican meeting where it was so cringe. We played Donald Trump by Mac Miller. Did you ever hear that song? Yeah, we just bumped it. It was pretty cringy. Like, we all knew it was cringy too. We were just because like none of us really went in for that. But yeah, I remember it. So that morning, I went to a fairly sort of like hipstery-esque place in the center of town over here, and I got served by a sort of like a hipstery-esque male. This is the morning after the election. I look up at him. I could just like his expression was like he was dying, and I literally said to him, I was like, "Hey man, you okay?" He's like, "Yeah man, I'm okay. I'll make it." It's like,
oh my gosh, it was bad. I remember going to. I want to just to indulge in this conversation. Like, because I think it's either it's one of my adopted parents' birthdays around that time. I don't remember which one. I think it's. I'll find out this year and I'll let you know. But I remember it was one of their birthdays, and we went out to this restaurant, and a literal fight almost broke out between like two separate tables that were both talking about the election. and I do recall being that snotty like college kid, and I was like Hillary. It was so bad. It was a scene. Do you
guys think it's as tense now as it was in 2016, or tenser?
It's tenser.
What do you think, Tim?
I think it's tenser because I think in 2016 no one took Trump serious. Like,
well, I had some far left friends taking him pretty seriously.
If you see some of the Democrats when they're talking about it, I forget who they were interviewing. It might have even been Obama. They were talking about Trump being the Republican candidate, and they said, do you think that he's the right person for the country or for their party or whatever? And, and Trump said, we're happy about it. Basically, I think it was Obama, but whoever it was, basically was like, yeah, there's no fucking way in hell he's gonna win. This was a disaster for the Republican Party, and it came back and smacked the Democrats in the face.
Smacked everybody in the face.
And so I think there was a lot of people that just weren't taking it seriously, that were shocked that he was actually the candidate, and felt like that was a bad enough thing, saying, how can this large of a portion of the country support him? Like that was the shock. But now it's a completely different story. So I think it's much more tense now. And the people that do support him are they're ingrained, man. Like,
oh yeah, dude,
there's no question anymore.
Guys, it was, I was driving. Thank you for saying that. You triggered a memory. Like 3 days ago, I was driving on the highway, right? For those of you who are not in Connecticut, I mean, there's that stretch of 84 when you're going towards Manchester, where there's like both highways. On one way is coming towards you, you're going towards the other way. There, I kid you not, this is not an exaggeration. There was no less than 150 trucks all driving in a giant row with giant ass Trump flags.
Oh my God.
And at first I started laughing, and then I just got quiet, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but that is the definition of like fascism. Like, no definition. Nathan.
Definition? Define fascism.
You're disgustingly loyal to your state, regardless of anything else.
That's
like
nationalism.
Ultimate nationalism, fascism, whatever.
Nationalism goes into fascism, that goes into authoritarian.
But these people are like literally, if they would like give their firstborn to Trump. Like there's a population that is Nathan. As passionate as I am about politics, I've never had a Bernie Sanders bumper sticker. I've never flown a Joe Biden flag from my car. Like at the end of the day,
you see Bernie stickers all over the place. They're my
Okay, so these
Bernie sticker
are acceptable. Never have I said, all right, Bernie bros, let's all create a giant like SUV drive and like
hey, now listen, man. Okay, so
that's crazy. That's some crazy stuff.
All right,
that was
fine. All right. I'll concede the point so we can move on. So
yes.
The only part of fascism of the definition, I looked it up, that I would say we don't have right now is the dictatorial leader. Other than
read it all.
A political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual, and that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition.
Yeah, we have almost none of that.
We have almost all of that except the dictatorial leader.
We have it all.
Where's the okay, so man, we could get into just this, but there's no focus on race. The only focus on race comes from the left.
You don't think there's any talk about race and how there is no racism?
There is white supremacy is not the platform of the Republican Party, nor is it of Trump.
Not publicly.
That's not optional. It's literally not his fucking platform.
I don't agree. I don't think it is. I'm not saying it is, but it is very much a America first, our culture, race first, right?
If it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck,
if it farts like a duck.
We'll get. Let's do that. We'll do that sometime. We'll have to get into that. All right. So we did want to talk about the debates tonight, right? The vice president debates. We should just get into that because God, I love the conversation we're having too much. Okay. So I just want to pop this up real quick, and then we can. I don't know. Did you guys have time to get sources? I know it was super rushed tonight, so maybe we'll just be doing me with sources tonight.
I didn't have a chance, and I do apologize for being late. And I wanted to make a comment that this is on point, that popped into my head when I was watching the debate. I was thinking, I was like, I'd really like to hear these guys talk more in depth about some of these topics, and they keep getting pushed off of them. Like, we have to get to this next one.
Yeah.
And I got that, and as I was thinking about that, I was like, we do the same thing in our podcast. right? We're like you were just like talking about something. We're like, yeah, I'd love to talk about this more,
but
we have to get to this.
I only gave you a half hour.
I'm not complaining. I'm just making an interesting, parallel.
I mean, it is true. So in media, you have to do the thing. But I was just thinking about the exact same thing the other day. I was like, man, this dinosaur media with these 2-minute responses. Like, you kidding me? 2 minutes to talk about what your plan is for anything? Like, for a whole nation? Are you kidding? Like, it's atrocious.
And it's turned into a game where it's like, you have 2 minutes to talk about this, and here's your next question. You're like, thanks for asking another question. Back to what I was talking about.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, like, fair enough. I mean, I don't know, whether you hate the guy or not. It's like, well, I didn't have enough time for that, so I'm going to go ahead and answer that anyways for, like, the next 2 times. Let me pop this up real quick just so that everybody can see this. Speaking of not sleeping on things, China censored vice presidential debate when Pence was asked about communist nation. Right, so their feed went to those, like those 3 colored squares for 3 minutes while Pence was answering about the question about China. So, don't sleep on China. China is asshole.
Dude, I've been to China, and I can tell you they're extremely censored.
Just go to Hong Kong, or...
And I was in Beijing and like 3 other cities. I was there for a week. And this was some time ago, so they may be a little bit more open and accessible now, but I think they're still very censored.
I wouldn't count on it, Pip.
It was maybe like 6-7 years ago, but like you couldn't get on YouTube. You couldn't access it. It didn't exist at the time. You couldn't get it.
Canada does some things really smart for the sake of their economy, but also China's very dangerous. We can do a whole thing on it.
We should do a segment on China, like almost a whole hour.
Very soon, because I can talk a lot on it. I mean, but just briefly, some major concerns with China and why, like, I'm glad to see both parties adamant against kind of the concerns of China. First and foremost, one is that I'll say the concern. I mean, China has such a massive population that their population, they basically is kind of expendable, and so they have the ability to create products in the global economy at a rate lower than any other country can possibly do. Like, we cannot compete with Chinese manufacturing because they literally are using slave labor. Like, they literally have Muslims locked in camps as slaves right now.
Yes.
India and China have basically the same population.
I thought China had less. I'm sorry.
They're both very, very close. It's like it's 1.39 billion compared to 1.35 billion.
Yeah, it's the rights issue. Like, China does totally is
absolute atrocious human rights violations. So yeah, all right. So we'll do a segment on that. That's really important. That's honestly, we love politics around here, obviously, but but that's probably one of the most important issues of the decade, honestly. So what's that? I don't get it. Help.
It's a duck. What do you mean you don't know what it is?
Well, Nathan, like I said before, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck.
All right, buddy.
And you're required to be a duck to be a part of this said organization. It's probably a duck.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so wait, Chris, did you have sources besides the duck? I love it. We're going to have to put a link for the duck in the comments afterwards. Okay, that's fine. I have some stuff. So let me run through my stuff. You guys can interject. You can bring up your own points if I jog your memory on something. I just have some stuff I'm going to walk through. So let's start up. Let's do the top. How do we feel it went? I feel like so just trying to be as unbiased as possible here. So I think because I like Pence, I think he wins. But he was definitely very commanding, cool, collected, and he was correct. Obviously, I think. So I think he did really well. Obviously, both candidates did way better than their counterparts, although the gap between Kamala and Biden was smaller because there was much less of a gap to make up. That being said, I think Pence won, maybe like a 60-40. I think he was absolutely correct, but as far as commanding tone and how smart...
What do you mean by correct? When you keep saying you think he was correct, what do you mean by him being correct?
I generally think his fact checks should be coming back more true than not. So, and I agree with him.
Well, I agree they should be, but not because he said true things. I think he should.
You know what I meant? You know what I meant. I agree with him philosophically. Generally speaking, I'm not pro-life as much as he is, but
well, you're not as religious as he is. He's extremely devout, I believe.
That's correct, but I'm more soft on religion than you are. So that's which is weird. You might be the most, sort of atheistic person here.
Yeah, I'm relatively religious. I'm probably like in the weird.
I probably am.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, that's my take. I think Pence generally kind of won. And let's forget about whether I think he was correct. I think it was like he stuck he was poised at all times. He was collected. He had his facts. He answered only the questions he wanted to. It was decent. Like, it wasn't a blowout like a lot of my boys are saying, but I think he had the upper hand.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say the same for Harris, but, like, one, I like her. And so therefore I think that, that obviously impacts my bias of saying, yeah, I think she won. I will say this. I mean, both of them, when you look at fact checks, they're relatively even. There's not like this. It's not like clear, like when we look at the Biden-Trump debate, the reality is like most of Trump's statements were misleading or incorrect. Not all of Biden's statements were misleading and correct, a decent amount. When we look at Harris versus Pence, it's pretty much the same. If you look at New York Times, they're pretty reliable when we think of like high level journalism. They care about their stuff.
I disagree.
I know. Well, that's just because you don't like you just don't like.
They put out the 1619 project. Are you kidding me?
Well, we'll talk about that in a separate thing. But
yeah, we should.
Look at any organization. Look at any. I'm clicking through right now. You got CBS. You got Washington Post. You got BBC. If there's anyone that's gonna be apolitical, it's BBC.
Oh, stop it! They're leftist over there too.
No, dude, everyone's leftist unless they say they want to blow Trump. So
Stormy Daniels is not leftist.
I will say, Stormy Daniels is the only conservative in the world.
So I'm pretty sure there's a few more Stormy Daniels out there.
Yeah, probably. So that's our president. But no, I mean, I think Kamala Harris is an incredibly, incredibly strong debater. Like, there's no doubting that. Like, and so I think that she's very commanding. She's very much emphatic in what she's able to execute with her words. She's articulate, and I think that really came off very strong. And I think that's what she was expecting to do. Was like, let's show some healthy, polite strength, and that's what we received from Kamala Harris. I think Pence is more cool and collective. We do see him being much more overall composed, because just everyone's more composed than the president. But obviously, he was emphasizing his composure. Kamala was emphasizing, she has the ability to have some strength, and she did that. That's what she was looking to say. They both avoided questions they didn't want to answer. Yep. Pence didn't talk about pro-life, what the Supreme Court's going to do about it. Kamala Harris didn't talk about stacking the court. Obviously,
right. Yep.
Either one of their answers would push moderates away from voting for them.
Correct.
So,
yep.
To get the elephant out of the room, I think that Pence probably won, but not by a large margin. At the end of it, I felt like I was more impressed with how Pence handled himself and what he had to say. I shouldn't say impressed with what he had to say, but the way he twisted things and made it sound good for his side versus how well Kamala did. I think it was more of like a 55-45. It was very, very close to me. But I do think that Pence probably pulled ahead a little bit. I think that we have become numb at this point. I was talking to somebody about this today, and when I was watching the debate, I almost just didn't care that they were full of shit half the time. Because I was like, oh,
yeah, this is
like the normal level of full of shit. So this is fine,
Yeah.
compared to what we're used to. So we're like numb to it at this point. That we're I just didn't even care. I was like, oh, that's just a normal political twist. It's just no big deal. Right. Whereas I used to get all heated about that stuff because I hate dishonesty and hypocrisy to a core.
Last night we were talking, it's like, why don't the honest people just win all of the political debates? And it's like, well, who's that chick? How am I forgetting her name? Not the Democratic Tulsi Gabbard. Right, that's an example, right? She was super honest. and a lot of people loved her, but it just didn't get her very far, right? Because there was no political gamesmanship in being honest.
It was also the media coverage and stuff.
That's
It's-
true.
Also,
That's true.
Pence was a bit annoying too at times. I mean, in his debate strategies, first and foremost, like I think the tweets capture it perfectly. The tweets are like, if you're like Mr. Vice President, can you introduce? Well, I'd love to talk about my name, but also the grass is green and unwatered. Like that was like his responses. Like he was like he would just totally avoid the questions, and also like there's definitely let's be honest. I wish I had the clips in my mind. There's definitely some full blown like cuckoo grandpa vibes. Like there is definitely Thanksgiving dinner uncle vibes. Like he's
Like
talking.
what?
So there was one point, like he said like 5 to 10 different topics in like one row. Like it was when his closing was going out. He just started being like, you guys are the extreme left. You are going to, I was like, wow. I'm like hearing like the grandpa
A whole bunch
Thanksgiving.
of truths flying out there, huh? Yeah, a little too fast. It'll make your head spin. It's okay. You'll get it.
One of my favorite examples of that, Chris, was when they asked Pence, they said, do you believe that climate change is an existential threat? And he's like, well, did you hear her just say that they're going to raise taxes?
Didn't he? So he actually circled
He
back.
just completely like, whoop.
Well,
Right,
He,
so, but he-
but he also
He did
like,
circle back to that answer, and it was not a satisfactory answer to the
I don't
left.
think he ever commented on it if it was existential or not.
No, he said. So he said
The direct
climate
question
is
was,
changing.
do you believe climate change is an existential threat?
Right.
And
so,
that he never answered.
No. Okay. So kind of. So he pivoted back to whatever he wanted to answer from the question before, but later in that answer, he did say the climate is changing. The problem in California is not the climate. The problem in California is forest management.
Right. He
cetera.
took the common non-science based approach that the climate is changing not because of us. And
No, he didn't say that.
that's what he was basically saying. He didn't actually say we're not responding. He's saying the climate is changing, but
Yep.
when people say that, that's the way that they're coming at it and saying the climate on its own is changing. It changes. Climate changes. It's happened since the history of the planet. We have data showing climate has changed, right? That's the
Yeah, I know.
response
So,
that people usually give.
So I'm not going to argue with you too hard on this, but conservatives do
'cause you'll
actually
lose.
acknowledge. Because it's not really the point right now.
I know.
Conservatives do acknowledge that the climate is changing and that it is to a degree man-made. We disagree on solutions at this point. So
I will say too, it's I just want to preface this that whereas more people on the further left like the idea of a Green New Deal, that is a minority view in the Democrat party as a
right,
whole.
and
Joe
that's why
Biden is-
Pence was harping on it.
Well, yeah, because he likes to like scare. He's like, "Ooh, Green New Deal."
All right,
Yeah, but Trump did it too, and it's an exaggeration at best, and a lie is probably closer to the truth.
no,
that
hold on.
Biden is supporting the Green New Deal. He's
So let me
not.
talk about this. So this was actually a point that I had. So I have the actual quote, or one of the quotes, because I talked about it a bunch of different times. But so the question from the moderator was,
I didn't like the moderator, by the way.
I didn't like some
I
of her
want Chris
questions.
back.
She was honest. She was okay. So look. So first of all, Kamala Harris was one of the original co-sponsors of the Green New Deal. Straight up, like
So
co-sponsor the Green
So?
New Deal, like the Green New Deal. Okay, it's number one. Number two. So let's see. So when Mike Pence said, I don't have that quote up, which is unfortunate. So I have a PolitiFact article pulled up right here. So basically, Joe Biden's website shows that he supports the Green New Deal despite denials. Denials in the debate. So basically, Mike Pence was like, "You have it on your website that
his website says that his plan is the Green New Deal is a foundation or something along the lines of his plan, right? It's
right, he likes a lot of it, like net zero emissions by
parts of it.
2050,
Yeah, there's parts of it that it's based off of. Yes,
right, and renovating housing and all this stuff, which is insanely expensive and ineffective, right? A lot of poor people are going to suffer under that. And it's going to have negligible effect on the climate because China is going to ignore it, and so is India. So it's like so. I mean, not to get into it too much, but so I mean, he hit her pretty hard on that. he was technically correct when he said it's on her website. Technically correct. It's not exactly correct because it's not the AOC Green New Deal. But I mean, it's going to destroy the economy in order to, and then since the economy gets destroyed, poor people are going to suffer. A lot of poor people.
Why is the economy going to be destroyed?
Because it's like $90 trillion.
How much was it to build the highway system in this country?
I don't know.
Did that destroy the economy? It was a massive expense and undertaking.
It probably was no $90 trillion.
Might have been equivalent money. I'll look it up while you talk.
So there was that. That was pretty good. I don't know. What did you think about the whole Pence harping on the Green New Deal, Chris? You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, it's pretty clear he's just trying to scare a bunch of grandpas and uncles, moderate voters there, by calling us socialists. But the reality is that first and foremost, people co-sponsor tons of stuff. It doesn't mean it's actually going to go through. A co-sponsor is not a vote on a bill. I think that's really important delineation.
But it's an ideological sign-on.
Sometimes. I mean, it's a little bit more complex than that. I'm not going to try to disparage it. You're right. I mean, it is an ideological sign-on. Yeah. It gets a little bit more nuanced than that. It's like a favor thing. It's also more or less like it's as simple as this. It's as simple as this, to be completely honest. One senator will say to a bunch of one senator's office will say, "Hey, this looks like a good idea." So they'll bring it to the senator. We'll say Chris Murphy. So Chris Murphy's legislative director will say, "Hey, this is an idea. I want to run with it." Chris Murphy will say, "Cool." So really fun fact, every single senator and House of Reps member, this is going to be the most mind-blowing thing. I feel like it's like the best kept secret in the world. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of things called auto pens, but they literally have machines calibrated to their signature. So what you do is you'll then email the other staffers in maybe 10 of their offices. Like, so we'll say Kamala Harris's office is one of those 10. Their staff director sees the Green New Deal. They write up 3 sentences on it, and they show it to Kamala Harris alongside 15 other bills. And she goes, yes, all right, sounds cool to me. Cool, it's pro-environment. That staffer, who was supposed to be the person that went through and really dived into this, probably an intern, to be honest, went through and did this, then takes that bill, walks it over to a machine, then goes and writes Kamala Harris's name on it. That's how co-sponsorships work on all sides of the aisle.
Sure, but you think in this case maybe it was the Green New Deal was pretty high profile when it went through.
Yeah, she probably looked at it. I'm not. She's a good person. She's a good senator. She probably looks at her stuff a little bit more intensively. But the reality is, it wasn't the same progressive Green New Deal you're seeing in the House. It's environmentalist reform. The reality is that it didn't pass, but also Joe Biden as a president is not going to be for a Green New Deal, and he is kind of the final stamp on these things. So he
has a version of it on his website.
Oh, does he? Can you pro it up?
Yeah,
he has his own plan that has some features of the Green New Deal in it.
I had a PolitiFact on it. I'm sorry, I actually closed it out because I thought, I'm not sure why I closed it out because we weren't done there. I had a PolitiFact. It was like mostly true. He had it on it was like mostly false to his claim he didn't have it. It was on his website, and it was the basis of it. But what they got rid of was like the literally socialist stuff, like having universal health care and whatever else it was.
No, the PolitiFact thing, if it's the same as the other fact checking I've seen, is Pence said you have the Green New Deal on your website, right? Like the phrase, the Green New Deal. And they do. They say the Joe Biden plan, is one of the foundations of the Joe Biden plan was the Green New Deal. And here's the Joe Biden plan. And there's a lot of differences. And they took a lot of stuff out. But, so his statement was true, mostly true, that the wording, the Green New Deal is on there. It's just his plan is not the Green New Deal. And to go back to just close that loop, the interstate system costs about $500 billion in today-ish dollars.
Right, so 1/180th of the price of the Green New Deal.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reality is Joe Biden is winning votes right now as well, and also he is not like, this is me trying to say, no, he's not going to do this. But the reality is, I mean, I believe we do need significant environmental investment and reform to be able to move this country to a place where, we're healing, right? Like we need to heal a bit. California as a whole state should not be on fire. These are problems that, are relatively man-made because California is in a crisis of a bunch of things like drought and whatnot. So Biden is bringing on progressives in the planning committees of these things. Like Ocasio-Cortez is part of Biden's planning committee, but so are the more conservative Democrats, right? So it's like that's the whole point of compromise. Now, this is compromise within a party's platform. This is not compromise in the final Senate and the final House, but this is how it should work. It's like the Ocasios, the Sanders should have a seat at the table. They also are not going to get, I'm not going to get everything I want. I might get 15% of what I want.
We should do climate change sometime. I think it would be a pretty beneficial segment. Because I mean, the conservatives have come a long way. I feel like people still think that we're like George Bush era. It's the global warming debate, where it's literally no on one side and literally only yes on the other side. I think the debate has gotten way more nuanced in the past 20 years, and there's a lot of good information and a lot of different ways to think about it, right? So I think that would be a good podcast. But I say for now, let's move on to another part of the debate. By the way, in chat, if you watch the debate, let us know who you thought won, because we're curious. Our own little poll here. It's going to be more accurate than the national polls.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, there's this line. I wanted to talk about this. This is not just the debate. I see this everywhere. I see it all over the internet. I see it. Politicians say it, and Kamala Harris said it last night. Wait, is it Kamala? I'm sorry, it's Kamala Harris. Don't pronounce your name wrong, guys. So it was this particular line. Let me read this off to you. So this was towards, this looks like it's in the middle of the debate. They were talking about economics, and I absolutely detest this line right here. And here it is. And this is Kamala Harris speaking. And when we look at this administration, wait, that doesn't make sense. And when we look at this administration has been, that doesn't make sense, right? Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Yeah,
okay,
so you're also, let's be fair. I mean, if you read up, it's going to be a little silly too. It's not.
No. I'm sure. No. I'm not making fun of her. I promise. It's just like when we speak in front of people and we speak in speeches, sometimes we mash up our words. This also could be a typo. Anyways.
Yeah. The reality is, like, transcripting speeches is a death sentence, because even think about our talks. We look super silly because we pause, we have us, we have
like you interject, you have to like add whole new paragraphs just for one word interjections, like right here. So all right, so just try to follow me here,
Susan.
Okay, where did I? Okay, so here it is. So, and we look at this it must be how. So when we look at how this administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration, they will have lost more jobs than any other presidential administration. I absolutely detest this line.
Yeah,
right?
That's not true, obviously, because there's the Great Depression.
Well, it's not just that. It's that he had a black swan event. He had a global pandemic hit his country. Like, his economy was great. Unemployment was at an all-time low before the pandemic hit.
The Trump administration is happy to point out that Obama, under the Obama administration, manufacturing jobs, they had lost, I don't know, however many hundreds of thousands. Right, and they were incorrect to do that. Right? So, but the point is, like, both sides take a timestamp and just say, these are the numbers at the beginning and the end, and this is what happened during their presidency. And more, I mean, to that point, Trump is more than happy to take claim for the strong economic performance at the beginning of his presidency, which was just a continuation of the prior economic performance, because his presidency started, all of a sudden he's responsible for it. So, like, for you to take such a strong stance on this particular statement is.
But I am correct.
I mean, it's against every.
But I'm correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say I'm gonna say yes and yes to both. Tim's correctly right, and I think Republicans and Trump especially are definitely a little bit indulgent in the economic performance that was a product of 8 years of the Obama administration. The reality is, you do not see the economic growth from policies until a little bit further down the road. And so, which even you acknowledge about the tax cut, right?
True.
We don't know what so the reality is Obama inherited, these are just hard facts, to quote the favorite people, facts
don't care about your
feelings. Obama inherited a bad economy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It got better. Trump inherited
slowly, very slowly.
It was a great recession, dude. So Trump inherited.
But it was the slowest. It was the slowest recovery since the Great Recession.
Sure,
right. All of the other recessions,
and it was also the longest.
But Trump inherited a healthy economy after 8 years of growth. Finally, I will say this. Yeah, you're right. It's pretty lame of Democrats of any politician to kind of like take these numbers and misconstrue them, because they're not wrong. Like, jobs have been lost, but you're right. They were lost because of the pandemic. The reality is they're trying to win voters, and that's why they're doing it. I'm not saying it's right.
Obviously, to me, it's just, I don't know. It's say one of the more blatant and egregious ones. Because I see, like again, I wanted to talk about it not just because she said it, because it seems to be everywhere. It's like all the memes, and it's this one in particular is annoying to me.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's not fair. There's other. I think fair criticism is, I think Trump did not handle this pandemic well. However, with that being said, jobs would have been lost, unemployment would have happened regardless of who the president was, because of like the severity of this pandemic.
Right. And that brings us to one of the early exchanges that they had. So Kamala went after Pence and Trump over their handling of COVID, right? As you just did. And they said that they handled it poorly. And then I thought Pence had a really, really poignant comeback, right? And I love to see it. Like, it was one of those like feel good moments for conservatives. Like, maybe you can pick it down a little bit, but it was definitely mostly correct and it felt good, and he put it to her pretty well. So after Kamala rips the Trump administration's response to COVID, Pence starts going on, once again, probably answering an old question. Oh no, right here he goes in on a couple sentences, or he's buttering the moderator up. But then he says, before there were 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done, and that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now, Senator Joe Biden opposed that decision. He said it was xenophobic and hysterical. Right. And that's accurate. I knew that at the time. Right.
So
that's true from me.
That isn't accurate. And there's 2 parts of that aren't accurate. One, Joe Biden never said that decision was xenophobic. He said that Trump is xenophobic. He was talking separately about the decision.
In that context.
Okay. It's about the same thing as when you say that Trump never said that the coronavirus was a hoax.
Why was he even talking about xenophobia?
You know when you say Trump never said the coronavirus was a hoax, that it was the Democrats' attack on him?
Yes.
Right, exactly. This is kind of the same thing, right? Yeah, he's talking about something in the same breath and the same thing, but he's not saying that particular move was xenophobic. So
he just randomly decided to declare that.
Go back and read it.
I'm gonna
tell me if it's. But the second thing, the bigger one that to me is more important is a twofold thing. One, Trump did not ban all travel from China. He banned some travel from China, but all Americans could still come back. Correct. And a lot of other people could still, like any Americans, any natural citizens, and something else. But a lot of people could still come back, and there were still flights coming from China to the U.S. Second to that, the big outbreak that we had in New York came from Europe.
Yeah, correct.
So he didn't act. He didn't. His decision didn't make the difference, right? So
yeah, but he then banned all travel to Europe.
Too late.
Okay, but we knew that it was breaking out in China, so he banned travel to China.
We knew that it was breaking out in Europe.
From the other way, we banned it.
I think and just to say, like, Snopes does give a correct attribution to Biden calling Trump xenophobic for the closure of China. So I'll give that to you. I mean, the reality is more likely than not. I haven't looked at the actual quote, so more likely than not, he's siding with you. Or Snopes is siding with you, right? So,
which is crazy.
Well, it's not crazy. Snopes is pretty apolitical. Okay. It's just you guys don't like because they don't blow Trump. But anyways, to kind of continue this point is I don't think it is a fair criticism of Trump to say, he closed countries right at the right time or wrong time, because also in hindsight, knowing what we know now, of course we would have done things a little bit differently. Knowing what we knew in the
I was going to say that too.
Yeah,
so
knowing what we know,
points against or for Trump in that early days, it's like I don't even really blame Biden for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't know. There was so much we didn't know.
Fair criticism though on him not fully disclosing the severity of the virus when he knew early on.
So that's actually fact check kind of untrue right there. So that came out of the Bob Woodward disclosures, like where he said that Trump knew about it back in January. And the issue with that is that so Trump did say that to Bob Woodward. The problem is that nobody knew at that point. Dr. Fauci didn't know in January. Dr. Fauci didn't know about any of that stuff until February. Right? And so we can talk about his response after he did actually know, but it turns out that early January statement, that was just Trump bloviating. That was him being...
No, that's what I'm saying. In the interview, he did know he was not fully disclosing the what the health community was providing him.
Yeah, but so my point is that so Bob Woodward said he knew in January. The problem is that nobody knew in January. So Trump is actually just lying to Bob Woodward. He's just exaggerating.
I gotta look into that. Doesn't sound right.
Yeah, if you guys are watching the stream, we have a fly that took over the entire thing.
Oh, the fly was the best part. It was like
literally the whole screen was a fly.
Wait, what are you talking about?
You'll have to watch it and see. It's now a small little thing that he's sticking on people's heads. So no. I want to read something about the xenophobia comment. This is why I took the position I did. So this article is fact checking this and says it's not clear Biden knew about Trump's China travel restrictions when he called Trump xenophobic on the day the restrictions were unveiled. Biden never explicitly linked his accusation of xenophobia to those travel restrictions, right? So when he said well, I'll read it to you. Biden's campaign says that the January 31st accusations that Trump has a record of hysterical xenophobia and fear-mongering were not about the travel restrictions at all. The campaign says Biden did not know about the restrictions at the time of the speech, and his campaign, since his campaign event in Iowa started shortly after the administrative briefing where the restrictions were revealed. So he had already had this written into a speech. It was already something he was talking about. It was part of what he was saying. It has nothing to do with those travel restrictions. And then at the bottom, though, it says, given the timing of Biden's remarks, it's not unreasonable for Trump to infer that the former vice president was talking about the travel restrictions, but Biden never took an explicit position on the restriction until his April declaration of support. So Biden...
yeah, Biden, right after he stopped holding rallies.
What?
He was holding rallies up till March, by the way. Just wanted to...
Who, Biden?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, the point is, it's twisted in that,
okay, so I'm curious.
I'm not saying he couldn't have meant it that way.
I like a good fact check, so I'm actually going to look into that after the podcast. I'm curious about that. I'd probably watch it and get it in its full context. So I don't like if it was just a speech and it had nothing to do with that. Sure, I guess we'll see.
I mean, and it could be that he did know, and he meant it that way, and it hasn't been confirmed it that way. But, yeah, and I was actually, the second point I was going to say is that you said nobody knew much about COVID back in January. I was going to counter that, and I don't even have to as much now. One of our viewers said January 21st was the first confirmed case of COVID in the U.S., so we did know.
But we found out about that in June. We retroactively found out that there was one in January. So
that I don't know about.
Yes,
I don't know.
I remember reading that article came out a month or two ago. It was something to the effect of scientists now say that the first confirmed case of coronavirus in the United States was actually earlier. It was in January. So we didn't know about that case at the time, but it was already on our shores by the time we shut down travel.
I mean, I got to do a fact check on this, but the reality is I'm nonetheless that the messaging that has been very successful is that Trump knew about the severity, and Trump even, again, if he lied to Bob Woodward, he lied in a way that really hurt himself, because he straight up is like, yeah, I didn't really say it was as bad as it was or whatever. Like if he's really lying, it's like, dude, this guy's geriatric, man. Like that's
yeah. But why did he lie? You say lie. Why did he downplay it?
No, he's talking. He's assuming you're being truthful and that Trump didn't actually know this data about COVID and lied to Bob Woodward about it.
He's talking about downplaying it.
But yeah, no, and no, I was saying exactly what, but also in the notion of why Trump was downplaying it. I mean, I think what Trump was saying is like, he said it outright. I don't even need to think about it. He was forthright with it. Trump goes and says along the lines of, "Well, I wanted the people to stay calm. I don't want people to panic.
Yes.
He wanted people to be calm." And I'm sorry, but that's not a good reason not to disclose information that is involving a pandemic. The reality is,
I agree, but it doesn't make him evil. How's that?
It doesn't make him evil, but it makes him a bad president.
It makes a bad policy decision.
It makes a bad president that costs lives without a doubt.
You need a little more than that to make a bad president, but I mean,
I can give you a whole list.
Oh no, I know. So no need to belabor that point.
Yeah.
All right. What'd you think about the fracking thing? They did fracking a bunch too. That was another thing that. So if you didn't see the debate, Pence pushed on fracking a whole bunch, and I thought it was a smart political tactic, even if it is not necessarily true.
Yeah, no one's canceling fracking. The reality is that when we look at oil industry right now, it's not possible to switch pure renewable energy overnight. It's going to take a long time to do that. And so for a long time, oil makes up some absurd amount of 3 to 10% of the world's GDP, not just the world's GDP. Yeah. The oil industry is pushing out tens of billions of dollars a day in sales globally. So the reality is we can't just put ourselves out of the race on that. That's insane. It would be insane economic policy. Every single sector would be impacted by it at a severe level. So there will definitely be a gradual transition. I know the left really wants to see fracking end, but the reality is it's just simply not going to end. I mean, it's too economically and politically unstable to do. Also,
it's lowered our emissions. Fracking has literally. Hold on, I'll pull something up on this. Go ahead, keep talking.
No, but what I'm saying is but there's other ways that we will ban fracking down the road, but not in this administration. It's not a 4-year plan. This is something that's going to take a lot longer to do. I remember someone I had an oil trader in one of my graduate courses, and he said something that was really interesting. He's like, obviously I'm very pro environment. He's like, I'm all for renewable energy. I look forward to my job not existing anymore. But the reality is there's a need for oil today. There's a consumption need for it. Until things change, this is a market that I'm going to be working in because it's that's where I'm getting my income. And so I can't blame him for that. I wouldn't necessarily be an oil lobbyist right now, but I understand it's there is a need for it in this current. It needs to be an incremental approach. That's what I'm saying. I don't think an overhaul overnight is going to be the right step, but we do need to be making significant.
I think we should just convert over to all nuclear right now. I'm down.
Yeah, we should expand nuclear energy.
Yeah, why is the left so afraid of that?
I think the fear comes into what do we do with the waste? But we've been getting better at getting rid of the waste. We've been getting better at but also Cold War era propaganda is a big issue. There's so much nuclear fear that. But I'm pretty for nuclear energy.
That's one of those things where it's left or right, who's following the science, and the right's we have this science from 1950. It works really well.
You know what's funny?
Do it.
I didn't even know that the left was anti-nuclear energy. I did not know that was something that my side of the aisle was being
right. Did it
about.
surprise you? Hey, good for you though. You didn't just be oh shit, my side doesn't like it. Fuck nuclear. But I'm sure. I mean, I don't know if you ever talked to anybody on the left about it. Did they have any good points? You said the waste management, right? That's definitely tough.
That's the big one. I think they almost look at the waste management is the issue of I think it's a fear thing. I think, again, Cold War era propaganda.
Right. Yeah.
I think people point at Chernobyl, but obviously we're not like, I'm sorry, but the Ukraine is like a third world country. We're not operating our nuclear like power plants.
Right. We also have different kinds of reactors.
Three Mile Island was in the U.S. and that had almost melted down, and then you have the one on the coast of Japan that got smacked by the tsunami that was on the verge of having a meltdown as well. Like, it's not just third world countries that have the risk.
But so there is actually so the risk will the United States will never have a Chernobyl with the type of reactor that we have. So we have the lightweight something reactors, and they have RBGMK reactors, and I think I'm butchering those. But the difference is that the RBGMK reactors that they used in the Soviet Union were super cheap. They used graphite on the tips of the rods, so you would when you push the rod down into the thing to make it stop reacting, the graphite would actually accelerate the reaction. Then you get a chain reaction, and then the whole thing blows up. Ours are different, and I'm not exactly sure how. But you can pretty much only do partial meltdowns in the United States, from what I understand.
Yeah, and I don't think that we should ban nuclear. I don't know enough about it. I actually think it's probably something we should do more of. But yeah, I kind of agree with your point on it, Nate. That it's an emotional response, not a scientific data response, which isn't unique for the left, right? The left is very much against assault rifles, but assault rifles really don't impact crime or deaths in this country at any significant level, right? But it's a huge talking point. Yep. Because it's an impactful emotional thing. It's horrific when you see it. It's it strikes you at your heartstrings, and so I think the same kind of thing also probably applies to the nuclear power. It's it can melt down. It has radioactive waste, right? These things are impactful to your psyche and
scary, man. It's radiation. You can't see it.
Yeah,
you can't see it.
Well, maybe the hippie.
And I actually think it's the right that should be more anti-nuclear, because that's where they stick the power plants. Is out in the fields and shit, not in the middle of the city.
I've been working on a theory that the left and the right are embodying, multiple different things. But right now, one of the things that the left and right are split over is safety versus freedom or efficacy, essentially. All right, and it works in almost every scenario I can apply. Like, the left wants things to be safe. Like, you want healthcare for people, you want things to be provided, you want life to be good for everybody. Like, you genuinely are there for the poor people when you're doing it right. Like, and I would say socialism is where you start doing it wrong. But this is the exact same kind of thing. I think it's interesting because this just happens to line up with what I'm saying. Nuclear sounds unsafe. It's perceived to be unsafe. And so I think that's why it ends up being a left opposition on that one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think I would think it's relatively safe to say the left is more okay with dissolving certain. Maybe. Yeah, I guess so. It depends. I was going to say that the left is maybe okay dissolving certain liberties, but the liberties that we're willing to dissolve are things that we wouldn't want anyways, like owning an assault rifle. It's like we're kind of just like, there's no reason that anybody should have an assault rifle. So we don't look at it as an infringement on the Second Amendment as a whole. We look at it as like, that's something in the same. We look at it as like, in the same way we wouldn't want someone to have like a military helicopter in their backyard. We wouldn't want them to have an assault rifle.
Right. But you want people to be safe from guns. You want people to be safe, whatever it is. You want transgender people to be safe from radical right-wing people who are assholes to them. Right?
Hey, I'm new to the neighborhood. Is there anything I should know? Yeah, don't fuck with Bob. He has an Apache.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby has
licensing property for that.
No landing zone. He just kind of parks it wherever.
Right, yeah. He's got a super strong
dude, when you have an Apache, you park it where you want. Okay.
Do we
but no, you're right. I mean, I am pretty for nuclear energy. I don't see the problems with it.
Yeah,
I think we do need to pass some regulation that you can't have yellow cartoons running the nuclear facilities.
Yeah, no, Homer Simpson should not be running the. That was Chernobyl, dude.
yeah. Hey, if we get
caricature of Chernobyl.
If we get, what is it, nuclear fission they're working on? Fission reactors? I always get fusion and fission backwards. One of them is inside a star, and that's actually the one that they're trying to get. They're trying to super compress.
Fusion.
Are you sure? Because I thought it's in the star and it gets fused together, and then I looked it up and I think it was the opposite, where it's fission inside a star and then it's fusion. I don't know.
Fission is the separation of. Fission is the separation of. Fusion is the joining of.
So that would be the radiation inside a reactor, right? Fission?
Cold fusion is what you always hear is like the holy grail, right? Cold fusion. So it's what they're working on is hot fusion.
Thing, yes.
Yeah, what they're working on is hot fusion.
The answer here is we need to get the Infinity Stones.
Yeah.
Fission. Hot fission. Fuck, I can't remember.
So Dan Bayek says we have fusion nuclear. I don't.
Yeah.
I dislike the fact that the word is not descriptive because that's radiation pinging off of other rods and it's technically disintegrating. Where inside a star it's being pressed together, but it's also radiating. Man, I don't know. All right, so I mean that's all I had for the debate. I don't know if
that's it for me.
I'm having a good time bullshitting.
No, yeah. So it's fusion. We don't have fusion right now. We have fission.
Yeah, sure.
I just all I did is I googled fusion reactor. The first thing that came up is says fusion power is a proposed form of power generation that would generate electricity by using heat from nuclear fusion reactions. Right? So
what are you reading? Something from the 1930s? That's how it works already. Yeah, you heat. So in the ones that we have already,
nuclear fusion reactor could be here as soon as 2025. We have fission, not fusion.
Oh my God. Yeah, fission is the one that heats up the water, right?
They both.
Oh wait, would they both? Oh, I'm stupid. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, they both. It's how they do it. It's fission is you have a radioactive. Well, it doesn't have to be radioactive, but anyway, for the way to do it is, fission is the separation of an atom. Fusion is the combining of the two. Fusion takes a shit ton of energy to make happen. That's why it happens inside of a star, inside the core of a star, right? But when you have the right two atoms that fuse, they release more energy than it took to make them fuse, right? So when they fuse together, they form another atom, and that atom doesn't need all the energy that is stored in it from the both that combine, and so it releases all this energy.
Man, all sorts of energy just always getting released.
And so,
just go ahead and ban Daniel, by the way. He had it wrong.
Yeah. See ya, Daniel. But the point is, to make those fuse in the first place takes a massive amount of energy, and what they're doing right now is trying to get to. So they have fusion reactors right now. Mm-hmm. It's just that they're pumping more energy into them than they're getting out of it, and
so
that obviously
bigger. I think is the thing, right?
Size is one thing, and it's also just
efficiency.
Yeah, just getting it right and how you design. They use plasma fields in a lot of them to hold the material in place because you're talking about temperatures hotter than the center of the sun or as hot as the center of the sun. So any mechanical way of holding this stuff is just going to melt and not work. So there's a lot of really high tech stuff to make fusion happen. But if they can get it to happen, which they probably will, from what I've seen, they all the tests are showing that they're building this new bigger, as you said, reactor to test this. Mm-hmm. But they're expecting to have a positive power output in the next 10 years, 5-10 years.
Which would be fantastic.
It'll still be another 20 years after that probably before we have actual power plants doing it. These are still,
and there's probably still some explosive potential in a facility like that. So there might have to be some regulations on where you can put them.
It's not like fission. No,
I know. I'm not talking about a nuclear explosion. I'm talking about more conventional pressure explosion.
Yeah, there's things like that. But I mean,
we're going way off the rails here. So basically, we don't need the Green New Deal if we can just switch over all to nuclear. That's all I'm saying. How's that?
Yeah.
We should
fusion is very very green. There's no radioactive waste or anything.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah, use like hydrogen.
one day. So, I mean, I have nothing else to say on the debate. I mean, I think I'm glad I watched it. I mean, I literally think that I'm not a sports person, so this stuff is like this,
right. Yeah,
it really is like the playoffs. I can't even begin to tell you like the adrenaline I get from watching debates.
I know. I have to crack a beer to get the nervous energy out of me right before it starts.
It's great. It's great. I'm election night's the Super Bowl basically. So so I can't wait. But no, I mean I think we're all on the same page with how the debate went. It was a strong debate. It was actually, to be honest, I'm just going to give my closing remark now. More than anything else, I got to have a breath of fresh air because I forgot what like civil discourse looked like at the national level. Like Pence saying, Kamala, I respect you for everything you've done.
Yeah.
The guy almost was like, what?
It was, I was like,
say that?
wow. I actually felt like my heart rate go down. I was like,
yeah,
thank God, we're finally.
It was sweet.
It was the respect. Like they were respectful to each other. And I really miss that, man. I can't wait to have a president again that we get to have some normal conversations and not this like craziness.
I will agree. And then I suppose for my closing statement, what I want is Trump's policies with Pence's mouth. That would be fantastic. Because honestly, you strip away a lot of Trump's rhetoric, and I know you still disagree with a lot of his stuff, especially, I mean, you're on the left, so that's to be expected. But if you strip away Trump's rhetoric, you would obviously be a little bit less. I mean, I'm sure the temperature would be much lower. So yeah. I liked it. I like Pence.
What are your favorite 3 policies of Trump? Trump's policies.
Pretty much all of his foreign policy. Right.
So that's what people like him the most. I mean, and that's why a lot of people on your side of the aisle also Gabbard. She was very, very anti-war. And Trump is the reality, like you said, like where things really counted. Like he did not amplify or like put fuel to the fire in terms of troops in the Middle East. He did not overreact. Like, and I give him credit on those.
Pulled the trigger so many times, and he had freaking John Bolton breathing down the back of his neck the whole time. Not the whole time, a couple years, I think, trying to get him to go start wars with brown people. I don't know. If anybody's racist in the White House, it's probably that dude. Yeah, I'm sorry, Bolton. I don't know. You're probably
to try and sound like Trump, we should give him a nickname like Blow Him Up Bolton or something.
Blow Him Up Bolton. Look, man, Trump's pretty good at branding. So take
Bolton.
Yeah, dead kids Bolton. I don't know.
Basically, dude, John Bolton was insane.
The reason I asked though is because you say if you take away Trump's rhetoric, you like his policies. I know we hit on this a little bit last night when me and you were talking, but like, what are his policies? I think that's the thing that most people don't know. Like, we were talking about it, and I was like, I don't even know what his damn policies are. I don't know where he stands on hardly anything because
so
he doesn't answer anything, and he spends his time making fun of
he's
people
a politician,
but he's touting his own greatness. Like,
okay, yes. Once again, so you're getting distracted by the rhetoric.
And hold on, let's go back. His campaign is "Make America Great Again."
Yep.
He talks about being there for the American worker. He talks about trying to bring back manufacturing. He's very much U.S. focused. Hey, let's not worry about the rest of the world. Let's worry about the U.S. first, right? And to that end, then you ask people like, well, what are the biggest things that Trump has done? What's some of his biggest accomplishments? And one of the ones that people will say more recently, when you ask, is they'll say the peace deals in the Middle East. It's like, okay, so the policies and things he's enacting outside of the country, for a president that is so country focused, his great accomplishments are outside of the country.
Yeah, but he also
what has he done inside the country that you're happy about?
He also did he renegotiated NAFTA, was it?
Yeah, we've talked about that. NAFTA it's 98% the same fucking thing. It's very minorly different.
Whatever. I haven't looked into that. He's also begun actually pushing back against China, which is not a thing that's been happening at all. So, and I think China is like Russia. Russia has an economy the size of Texas. Russia is not really a thing. Like, we just love to hate on Russia, but they're not a thing. Even their election interference was like a couple $1,000s in Facebook ads that like 1,000 people saw. Like it's like it was just ridiculous. Like China is where the nation needs to be facing, and we should be doing. We'll do a whole segment on that, and we can still disagree with maybe what the foreign policy should be, but Trump actually woke the country up to the ills of China, right? And then there's actually, for those, I won't get into it. There's a whole bunch of like cybersecurity stuff that I can talk about because I'm actually in the field, so I know about a whole bunch of that stuff that's going on. There's the stuff that we see. There's the trade wars. There's what all the stuff. So pushing back on China anyway, great, love it. And then and I actually like some of Trump's rhetoric, and which turns into policies. For example, removing the they called it racial sensitivity training in the question, but any of these sort of like pseudo neo-Marxist sort of left-wing pay $100,000 to have some guy come tell you that you're a white piece of shit, that kind of stuff, like all that, getting that out of the military. No more of that. We're not going to be doing that no more. I like that. So, like I said, get rid of his rhetoric. I like a lot of the stuff that he's doing. But unfortunately, he's attached to his rhetoric. So that was a really long. My closing statement turned into a conversation, I guess. But so I'll let you go. Tim.
I don't know. My closing statement on the debate, I guess, was kind of on par with my opening statement. It's about the same thing. I found it interesting. I didn't, it made me think outside of just what they were talking about, and a little bit about the state of our country and the state of our mental being when it comes to politics, what we're used to. Watching it was so mild. It almost, it almost was like, what is this? Like, this is not entertainment. Oh wait, it's not supposed to be. Like, it was kind of insane there at first, like trying to wrap my head around what I was watching. And I thought it was funny that it seemed like Kamala was prepared to like go off on Pence for interrupting her. Like, I guess she thought maybe.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
I guess she thought maybe Pence was gonna, play from the same playbook as Trump or something. Because as soon as he would open his mouth when she was talking, she was on it. Like, I'm talking here, like getting on it. And I felt like her reaction was a little bit over the top.
Over the top.
For
Chris,
the amount that he was interrupting.
When Pence gave her time out of his answer, where he asked her a question, I think he asked her about, what did he ask her about? Packing the courts? I think he asked her a question out of his time, and then she started answering another question. She did what they had both been doing and started answering another question, and then he started interrupting her, and then she said, "Excuse me, I'm speaking." Right? So one of the times where she had her girl power moment, it was during his turn while he was asking her a question, and she was being off topic.
I don't see the reason why we need. Or I think she's just like a strong debater. If it was a dude, I mean, we're not talking about Trump and Biden.
My thing wasn't about her being a female or male. My thing was like she had a very strong reaction to the first time he even said one word when she was talking, and it felt like to me she was ready for like Trump's approach, and she was ready to just pound on it.
She was.
But Pence wasn't. Pence didn't play that way. I think for me, the worst moment of the entire debate was, I think it was early on, and I don't even remember the question that Kamala was asked, but she just started going through and giving her resume and just went on for like. That was the question. The question for that was, if your president dies, are you ready to be like the president? Yeah, that was it. And she just went on and gave like a 5-minute resume of how I'm the first that did this, or the first woman that did that, or the first black person did this, or the first,
it's an impressive
AG that enacted this law or whatever, right? It was just her resume of what she's done, and she has a great resume. I'm not trying to downplay that at all, but that wasn't the place that she needed to be doing that. I was sitting there going, answer the question or shut up. Like, nobody wants to hear this shit.
They both deflected on, because obviously nobody wants to quote the news bit of like, my president dies, like,
right.
And what she was doing, and I think it was a really good strategy, to be completely honest, is she was basically using that as an opportunity to present her credibility to the American people. These are all the things that I've done These are all the places that I've worked, and she's done some incredible, like California, like she's led basically a judicial system that is bigger than Europe. Like California is a giant state. This is why people from Texas and California get a lot of credibility in public office, like Ted Cruz and Kamala Harris, because the reality is, and George Bush, having come from Texas, the reality is if you can lead a country like that, or literally a country, if you can lead a state like Texas or California, yeah, you kind of have a lot of the skills probably needed to be president. And so that's what she was saying, that she was basically, and she also was being like, yeah, being the first like Black person in these roles, being the first Black woman, that's important. That those things do matter, because it's a sign that she broke through some serious red tape that most likely existed for her. So
don't take my comment as
No,
thinking that those things are not valuable, or that her resume isn't impressive, because I do respect all of those things about her and the things that she's done. I just felt like, and I understood why she was doing it. Your answer's on point. I think she was trying to find a way to, somewhat avoid the question, but still give some valuable input. But but I was just sitting there. To me, that was the worst part of the debate. I was sitting there just thinking in my head, like, just shut up already. Like, that's enough. Like,
I don't know. That was kind of like her, to me, that was kind of her Clinton moment, where she was just like unlikable for some reason. I don't even know if it was the words she was, I don't know. Look, I'm just giving you my gut reaction.
She was a woman.
No, stop it. Stop it.
And I mean, me and Nate
Tulsi Gabbard.
I can't
me
quite
and Nate talked
pinpoint it. It's her and Hillary Clinton are the only
Stop
people
it.
I know.
Me and Nate talked about this last night a bit, but you'll get this from my personality as we get more into these types of things. But I value honesty and straightforwardness above everything. And so if somebody were to ask me that question, rather than do the political thing, which I know it's politics, that's what you do. I hate it. I can't stand that shit. So I would have liked her to just say, what, to be it's a responsible thing to look at all risks that come into play when you're looking at leading a country. And obviously you never know if he's going to get in a car accident or something, right? So you can deflect away from the issue that's going to come from talking about this from the media, saying, yeah, they're afraid Biden's going to die, so they have to talk about this, right? Like they're afraid his health is bad, so they got to talk about this. That's obviously where you don't want to get to and why you don't answer the question. But you could easily get around that and say, in case of a car accident or a Kobe helicopter crash, like you could say whatever you want to say. You have to talk about this. It's a risk that needs to be talked about and mitigated, and we have talked about it, and we have a plan. And I've agreed to him that if some tragedy were to happen like that I'm going to continue with his platform. Or whatever, right? Like, simple question.
Maybe you're a better man than all of us, Tim.
I am.
All right, guys.
All right. So, all right, with that, thanks for sticking with us so late, guys. It is 10:30. We did start late, so we thought we'd go a little late. That seems to be how we roll. We kind of give us the excess time past 8, so we generally do about 2 hours. So, I just want to say, critical race theory was what I was trying to think about before. Trump banned that. That's good. I like that. So with that, thanks everybody for showing up as usual. We love having you guys. If you have any feedback for us, we love it. We always love feedback. We'd like to hear if you liked more of a rambling format like we had tonight. If you like the duck, right? We're going to put the link to the duck in the description. Obviously, it's the most important part. But other than that, just like and subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with all your friends if you just want them to be depressed like us. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.